Welcome to TechNow. Thank you for joining us. This is the web series for ServiceNow admins, builders, and developers on a wide variety of platform topics. We are glad you are here. Thank you again for joining us. Let's get into the introduction. Our topic today, of course, is exploring ServiceNow DevOps. If I can find my cursor, there we are. First, a safe harbor statement, because some of the information in this presentation will be forward-looking, and we want to make sure that you don't base purchasing decisions on the information you hear here today. So it could change. Things that we say are coming out in a future release may in fact be backed up or pulled out or change completely. We'll point that out when we get to that point. You kind of get the idea. So just if you can't sleep at night, here's a slide for you to read all about our safe harbor statement.
Right.
Quick introductions for me. I'm a ServiceNow senior developer advocate. Wow, I don't know where the words are just not going today, but been here for a very, very long time. Feel very fortunate to be in this position to learn and share information with you as we look at the Now platform. There, I should actually get the right camera on for this part, because in post-production, it makes this much, much easier. You think this is the first time we've done this? No, this is show number 87. So lots of content in the backlog. We'll even give you a link for that at the end. So if you've got questions for us, remember there's that Q&A panel. I'll be in the background answering this because we've got a special presenter here to talk about DevOps. Craig.
All right, I'm Craig Stepp. I'm the Senior Staff Enterprise-Wide App Sys Developer. I need to work on an acronym for that, actually. I do a lot of the support for all the training classes we do, especially a lot of the events like you see at Knowledge, or if you take any of our classes and you get an instance and you're able to do the labs. That's my part, is the instance part. I specialize in cloud automation, and I've been in ServiceNow since 2014. I'm sorry, I was trying to think back how far that was, but about 7 years. And before I handled cloud labs, I was doing orchestration in our personal services department. And I've been helping out Chuck since 2016. I do podcasting, photography, and Linux. And I'll hand it over to Charn.
Thanks, Chuck and Craig. My name is Charn. I'm product manager for our newly renamed application lifecycle management product area, which now includes our source control and CI/CD features, which will be the highlight for today, but also our ATF upgrades, CLI, and upcoming clone management console products. I've been at ServiceNow for just a little bit over a year now, but I've been working as a product manager in San Francisco over the last 7+ years on developer-facing platforms and tools, most recently at Adobe and Sauce Labs. Prior to that, I worked in health tech as a product manager for mobile apps, and then way before that, as an engineer for the EHR space. For fun, I enjoy baking pizzas and traveling. Really hope Japan opens up towards the end of the year so we can go travel again. But otherwise, really great to be here today with everyone.
Very good. I hope every place is able to open towards the end of the year. It's nice to travel a little bit. So today's agenda, we're going to take a look at, again, as we mentioned earlier, introduction to DevOps with a little demonstration and Q&A. And before we get started, we're going to talk about Breakpoint, Chuck's podcast. I started to say breakout podcast, but it's Breakpoint. So he talks to different people in ServiceNow about not necessarily ServiceNow, but maybe some things that are related to it. So
John was on Breakpoint a few months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay. What episode was that? You remember? If you don't remember, that's okay.
March.
Okay. Currently, I think the most recent episode, you had Julian Mills on talking about creating effective presentations. It's
yes, like a part of a series, stages. Right? Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have more about presentations for developers.
Oh, great. Well, everybody loves a good presentation, right? But anyway, the talks that you have are really good and informative, not just about presentations, but other stuff I've seen. So go check that out. And that's the Breakpoint ServiceNow podcast. You can see the link right there. So if you need to capture the link, pause the video for just a moment and write that down. And also want to remind everybody that even though Knowledge 21 is over, there is plenty of material to still be had for yourself. And you can go learn and develop some new powers via CreatorCon and other, there's a lot. I think the the labs and stuff, lab materials and all that from Knowledge itself as well is all available there on the website. So you can go to developer.servicenow.com and again, pause the video. You can grab that link right there. Probably should have shortened that, Chuck, but oh well. That's okay.
I know.
Maybe
we
next
need a
time.
shorter. I'll tell you what, if you go to devlink.sn/blog, there's a tag cloud on the left. Just hit the knowledge cloud, knowledge word. There's the easy one, devlink.sn/blog.
That's right. Now, there's a lot of good information in there. And if there's some products that you're familiar with, maybe you want to take a look at some of these classes, you can always get something new out of it. So go check it out. And now I'll turn it over to Charan.
Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. So firstly, just to clarify, today we are going to be covering DevOps as applied to your development work on Now Platform or App Engine DevOps. And I just want to clarify, this is different from ServiceNow DevOps, which is our product to provide that single pane of glass to aggregate all of your development information for applications developed outside of ServiceNow. So the key problem that we're trying to solve here really is enabling those large developer teams, especially some of our largest enterprise customers where you have 100, 150 developers split across 15 different Scrum teams, all trying to develop using update sets on the same environment. And as many of you are familiar with, you run into problems where developers are stepping on each other's toes. It's hard to ensure the quality of your applications while ensuring a fast enough delivery velocity so that your end users can actually get the value delivered to them as fast as possible. And so in order to solve some of these code collaboration, quality, and delivery velocity issues, ServiceNow built features for source control to tackle some of the code collaboration issues by providing Git branching, so better code and work isolation. We provided CI and CD APIs to interact with our ATF and app repo features so that you can automatically validate and deploy your applications in a more continuous and automated manner. And this really speeds up the ability for your team to be able to do development work, make sure that it all works, and to get it out in front of your end users as soon as possible. So to better illustrate what that change looks like, if we look at what today's development for most customers look like, it's very much driven by changes made directly to an environment, right? So the way that you move changes between environments is via promoting update sets. The way that you ensure that environments stay in sync really is via cloning down for your production instance. And if you happen to be using team development, you may have several dev instances set up in a parent-child relationship with a dev master instance as the way to kind of coordinate all of your changes together. But as many of you have experience with pushing changes through this pipeline for any of your many teams can oftentimes take a long time. Some customers report up to a whole month to be able to go validate, go through change requests, get all the approvals and reviews necessary to actually get things out the door. For some of you who are faster, maybe this is a weekly synced up kind of process, which involves a lot of manual labor. And we want to reduce a lot of that manual work to do development and just make it easier overall. And the way that we want to do that is to help our customers adopt the best practices from the DevOps world in general software engineering. And to enable that, we're recommending that our customers transition their development work to using applications linked to source control. So if we look at a very typical GitHub flow here, and there's many different Git branching models that you can reference and leverage from the community. GitHub flow is just one of them. GitLab has their own version of this, as do several other remote Git repository platform products. But in the most simple case here, we can look at development work starting from a master or a main branch, where the code on that branch represents ultimately the code that is your application as deployed to your production instance. And every time you want to pick up a story off of your backlog, be that for a feature or a fix, you will be checking out a new feature branch on your dev instance, doing your development work there. And once that is completed, committing and pushing up that work to your remote Git repo, for example, GitHub in this case. By triggering a pull request, you can set up a CI build to kick off automatically, running your CI build to package up your application, push it to your app repo, deploy it into your test instance, and run your ATF tests. And assuming all of that is passing, then you can complete your pull request and merge your feature branch back into your master branch. And then, even better, if you have a full continuous delivery pipeline setup, you can do all of that again, but this time off of your master branch, and therefore validating all of the changes and commits that have ended up on your master branch are ready to go into production. And assuming, again, all of your tests are passing and your build passes, then your application can also be automatically deployed into production. So in this method, you can see that by leveraging Git branches, as well as automated testing and automated deployment, you can parallelize a lot of your development work and get your changes into production, all in a high quality and highly automated manner.
Charn, quick question before you, Mark in the chat says, is this about doing CI/CD outside of ServiceNow or inside of ServiceNow?
So ServiceNow is taking a hybrid approach to enabling this for our customers. And we should look at this in two separate components. Firstly, for source control, we are leveraging off-platform products like GitHub and GitLab, Bitbucket, etc., because those products are purpose-built to handle Git branching as the mechanism for development. And as you may be familiar with, many additional features on top of typical Git, like pull requests or merge requests, a lot of the automated build functionality are much more mature and sophisticated in these off-platform products. So we want you to be able to leverage the Git repo platform products of choice that your organization usually has already adopted on the engineering side of the house, but this time for ServiceNow development. For CI/CD in particular, we provide two options here. One is the CI/CD spoke that you can leverage a flow designer for to set up basic automation. And I believe that last year, there was actually another TechNow session that demoed this with Chris Faulkner. So how do you set up a basic automation to do validation and deployment using Flow Designer and the CI/CD spoke? What I will be sharing with you today is how do you leverage popular off-platform, third-party build automation tools that can be triggered by Git branching activities as the way to set up your CI/CD pipelines, more similar to how application development outside of ServiceNow today looks like in the DevOps world. But a great question. I see the comment about me taking a breath. I will try to have more pauses. Thank you.
That's all right. You've got a lot to cover today.
You can breathe after the presentation today.
Thank you. Right before my next presentation. So to continue along here, sometimes I get questions from customers on, well, how do I actually parallelize development across multiple branches? So say I have multiple developers on a team, they're working on the same application, they're picking up different stories on our backlog. Those stories will take a different amount of time, of course. So how do I actually merge the changes on their different feature branches here? And what I wanted to show here is what a typical rebase operation would look like. So once the first developer that checks in their branch back to the master branch has their commits back on the master branch, the second developer with, in this case, feature branch B, needs a mechanism to pull those commits that are now present on the master branch that are not yet in their feature B branch. And that operation is known as a rebase operation. And so you can look this up on Google as well. And many of the platforms, GitHub and GitLab, et cetera, have recommendations for how to perform this operation as well. But just letting you know that this would be how you would identify and resolve merge conflicts that may show up for you. So, we have a couple of questions that we'd love to ask the developer community here. And to start with, I'd love to better understand how familiar are you with Git branches as the mechanism for development for features and fixes and isolating changes. And I'll give everyone a quick 30, 45 seconds to answer these.
Now, I can tell you that I don't use them. I don't use them enough, and which I should, for because it's good to be able to test something and then throw it back in the main.
Right. Yeah, I did something for the first time on a personal project a few weeks ago. I was exploring a totally new method of implementing a feature. I said this old way is not scalable. I know that I have to change the functionality underneath, but it was a bit of a risk. And before I just overwrote all the existing changes, I made a branch and I went off and made those changes. When I validated that it worked, I did a pull request and pulled it back to the main branch, and like, wow, that was actually kind of cool. I was really nervous because as you always are on the first time you do something.
Right.
We do have a question while we're waiting for the answers to come in. Does this require more ServiceNow instances, and is there any cost associated with this? Thank you, Kevin.
That's a great question. So today, because you can only have one active branch per app per instance, it does mean that if you have multiple developers, each intending to work simultaneously on separate active branches, as we would expect in typical Git branching model, we do recommend having more instances available for your development team. Now, we're trying to resolve this with a feature called Clone Management Console, which will provide smaller partial clones for our customers. But one of the areas that I would like to investigate for next year is whether we can provide ephemeral instances for our customers to set specifically as dev and CI environments. So it's a problem space that we're looking to resolve. But yes, we would recommend more instances for development with more Git branches.
All right, let's take a look at those results.
Great.
How familiar are we? Ooh, fair amount.
So
used Git before?
40% have used Git before, 20% have not used Git before but are familiar, and 40% this is completely new. So we have a pretty balanced mix of responses here. And this reflects a lot of the conversations I have had with our customers, IT developer teams as well. There's definitely an enablement and education component here, getting our developer community caught up to speed on familiarity with Git. But we also have just as many developers who have used Git perhaps on other projects before and are looking to bring those best practices and patterns to their development work on ServiceNow. And our next question before jumping into demos is how familiar are you with app version as the release mechanism for managing validation and deployment workflows? So in other words, doing development work using apps and app repo on a Now platform. And we'll give everyone a minute to answer that as well.
And Charan, you did say that there's only one feature branch per application at this point, right?
Per application, per instance, yeah. Because when you go into Studio, for example, and you change the branch, you're changing that for the whole instance. So everybody working on that instance is working from that branch.
Correct. And so to clarify, sometimes I think that our developers confuse between two cases. One is how many active branches can I have on an instance at once for a given application? And the answer to that is one at a time. As Chuck mentioned, you have to switch between active branches. This will be similar to on your laptop locally. If you have a Git repo directory, you can also only be on one branch at a time for that particular Git project. The second part of things is sometimes there's confusion around well, how many Git branches can I have in total, for instance? And the answer to that is an infinite number of Git branches. You can have as many Git branches as you want on an instance, but only one can be active at a time. That is the limitation.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can't develop in several branches all at once. That would be a little crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we need multiple instances to support a simultaneous active branch development. All right, I see we have a steady trickling of answers coming up here. All right, let's call that a cap and take a look at the answers here. So let's see here. We have 16% of you who have published and installed apps from App Repo before. That's great. 20% of you have not used App Repo before, but already have experience with versioning applications as the mechanism for developing. And then 63% of you, this is new, so 2/3 of you. Wow, that's actually news to me, but glad to know that. That tells me that we need to spend some more time building out best practices and guides for versioning materials, especially around App Repo. So thank you everyone so much for your feedback and response there. All right. right. So today I'm going to do a quick demo of what making a quick feature in a global app looks like and what running that through my, in this case, CI/CD pipeline built on GitHub Actions looks like.
While you're doing that, we do have a couple of more questions in the chat if you're willing to take one.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Will this integrate with existing ServiceNow processes like change management? And can we automate the change management process for those changes that deploy using CI/CD?
Great question there as well. The ServiceNow DevOps product, the one I mentioned earlier, the single pane of glass aggregating all of the development information, that does handle automated change management. And I have seen customers integrate both what our teams are building on the platform side with what the DevOps BU is building in order to create one CI/CD pipeline for now platform development work that also integrates automating change management, change request creation, etc. Cool. So to start out with, one of the things that we've been releasing throughout Q4 last year, as well as very recently with updates for Quebec and Rome features, are extensions for the most popular CI/CD build automation tools on the marketplace. And the reason that we're doing this is because with the CI/CD APIs that we released, we realized that there was still a barrier for adoption because most of our customers don't want to take the time to figure out how to wrap those APIs into build steps for the most popular platforms. And so instead of having you go figure out how to set up all the requests and responses and values and parameters for handling the APIs, we decided to just go build all of them out for you as open source repos. So you can also fork and extend and submit pull requests in that typical collaborative open source community fashion as well for any of these. And just to really quickly go over what 4 options we have today. Today, there's a Jenkins plugin. If you go into your Jenkins instance, you can set this up from the plugins index. Just search up ServiceNow. We have an Azure Pipelines extension. So you can install this for your organization. I'm also aware that our DevOps BU also has a ServiceNow DevOps extension as well. So that might be how you will be able to combine the functionality from both of these extensions to automate both your app repo and ATF functionality, as well as add change management automation to your pipelines. We also have numerous GitHub actions through this list that you can see here. And one of the things I wanted to mention is on top of all the build steps to enable you to chain up pipeline YAML files for any of these platforms, we've also provided templates for customers to be able to just copy paste from to get started faster. So for example here, you will be able to just copy and paste from these pipeline template files, which already include all of the build steps set up as a part of jobs. And you can 3D modify these to your heart's content to match your organization's processes and needs as you adopt these features. And lastly, we also enabled anyone using GitLab CI/CD. Unfortunately, because they don't have their own marketplace, we ended up shipping this as GitLab Docker images and then pipeline template samples, which is the standard practice for providing resources for development on GitLab CI/CD. So jumping into the demo today, I will be leveraging what I shared earlier as a part of our GitHub Actions. I already have an application. This is a global application that I've got linked to source control to my GitHub repo here. And you'll notice here that in the root of my directory, I can really put any files that I want here. And GitHub expects the pipeline file to be part of this .github/workflows directory. And you can see here that I have a pipeline that's very similar to the template that I just showed you earlier. The 2 key parts of this pipeline to note are I have the ability to set up triggers based on what happens in GitHub. And in this particular case, I have it set up to trigger on every pull request. So this will be my CI build, as well as any pushes to the master branch. So this would be my CD build, if you recall the diagram I showed earlier on GitHub Flow. I then also have several jobs set up to essentially take the latest commits off of a particular branch, publish a version of the application, and then to deploy that application onto my test instance, run some ATF tests, and if that is passing, then we can complete the pull request and merge that branch. As well as a final job here, where in the case of pushing to the master branch, in other words, a CD build, then we're also going to deploy to prod if the build completes successfully. So here I've got 3 environments set up here. I've got a dev instance here, a test instance where I run ATF test suites, as well as a production instance where I will finally deploy my application. You can see here that the version of the application right now is 7.8.46. So if you haven't done this before in dev, you can open up the studio application, which will pop open in a new window here. Before I jump into my specific application, sometimes I get questions around, well, I only have experience with scoped apps. What are global apps? So you can see here in the scope column here, that actually have numerous applications here, both in the scope of my company vendor key, as I have set up on this dev instance, being cross, as well as in global and in ServiceNow published scopes. So all of my instances right now are our Quebec release, and as I'll cover in one of our roadmap slides later, we've enabled application customization. So any customizations that you've done in third-party scopes, be that a store app in Quebec and a plugin coming up in Rome, you will be able to organize all of your customizations as a part of app customizations that you can publish to the app repo and do all your development work in Studio. But for today, I will be doing my work in a global app. If you are creating a global app for the first time, you will be able to select between scoped and global applications, and you will simply create a global application. But since I already have a global app ready to go here, let's just take a look at that. So here you'll see my application. Here you see that with this global application, I already have many global records here, both script includes as well as forms related records. For those of you that haven't used global apps before, in the file menu option, there is an add existing files feature. And what this allows you to do is to search for update sets that you previously used to migrate your global apps, your global records. For example, customizations to ITSM or ITOM that you've historically done, and then to choose from a list of those global records to add to your global app. That is a cumbersome workflow if you have many, many global records. So I'll be covering in one of our roadmap slides as well how we intend to address that pain point. But today, we can see a couple of things here on the Dev Studio UI. On the bottom right here, this notes, 1, we are connected to source control, and 2, which branch I'm currently on. So I'm currently on the master branch of the application, which is also what I deployed to production in a previous round of development work. Secondly, we can see what version of the application I have referenced here. I think this is a slightly older version because of the way that my pipeline is set up. But heading into how you would begin your development work, firstly, I would make sure that my master branch actually reflects all of the changes that are currently in my GitHub repo in this case. So we're going to apply remote changes, which essentially does a git pull operation on top of some other operations to make sure that it's in sync on the instance. So now that we know our master branch is up to date, we are going to create a new branch now. And for today, we're going to call this the TechNow demo branch. And just as an example of developing a feature, we're going to create a new script include today. And follow my naming convention here, so I don't get mixed up as to which of my script includes are intended for what application. So we'll say that this is a script include that handles the color of my pineapple cake boxes. And this is going to be new development work for feature.
You have way more imagination on variable names than most developers. Pineapple
That's
cake
the
box
truth.
color. You must have some interesting passwords too. That's all.
Right.
I will say that they're very long.
Wait, that
Mine
is
are
his
like test
password.
variable, test this, test that.
Script include SI1.
Pineapple cake Charn Lin is the password. So great. Now that I have a new script include record here, one of the things that we fixed recently is a defect that handles updates on the left application explorer here, as well as in source control. So right now I'm going to have to hit the refresh button, but this will be fixed in I think it was fixed in Rome actually, but anyway, I have to hit the refresh button to get a commit to show up for now. But you can see here that this is our selective commits modal. And what this allows you to do is to choose whose changes as well as which changes under a particular user you are choosing to commit. That way you don't commit everyone's changes all at once. So right now I am logged in as sysadmin, but if you had other developers here, for example, Chuck or Craig, then they will show up in their own separate update sets named under their usernames, and each of their changes to every record would show up as a separate line item that you can choose to commit or not. Since I've only made one change here, that is a new script include as a feature, this is the only record that shows up right now. But I'm going to go ahead and commit this new feature for TechNow development. And what commit changes does on an instance is both commit the set of records that changes to the set of records that I've just selected, as well as pushing up my changes to the remote Git repo. So now that my feature development is done, let's hop back over to my Git repo here. And you'll see here that a standard feature in most of these Git repo products is the ability to inform the user that, hey, you have a new branch now, and there's changes on here that you haven't yet merged. So because we're done with our development work, we're going to go ahead and create a pull request. So we can see here that GitHub has already done some detection work here to go figure out, hey, are there any merge conflicts that I have? And because this is a completely new script include, there are no merge conflicts yet compared to the master branch. So we're going to go ahead and create this pull request. You may know earlier that I mentioned that one of the triggers that I set up for my pipeline is every time I create a pull request, it will automatically kick off my build. So that's exactly what's happening here. This is my CI build kicking off, which will go ahead, pull down the latest set of changes that I have from this branch onto, in this case, my dev instance from the TechNow demo branch, publish a version of the application, deploy that to test, and run some ATF tests. And we can see the details of that here if we open up a new window here. On each of the steps that it is taking as a part of different stages of the CI build. So sometimes this takes a little bit of time to run. So if there's any questions from chat that will be helpful to answer while I'm waiting for this to complete. Any question that I can answer for now, guys?
We got, does the CI/CD also connect to the release management, or is the association of change to release, does that need to be done manually? That's from Nerne.
You will have to set that up today for yourself. And this really depends on your organization's setup. For some organizations, for example, all changes are associated with stories from their backlog. So for example, from Agile Dev 2.0, right? So you would attach the name of a particular branch or a particular pull request to that story, and that would reflect what the acceptance criteria for your branch or your pull request might be, what goals or objectives you're trying to hit, what release that particular story will be tagged with. So that's a custom setup that you would do on top of that story on your instance.
Is it done?
So great. We can see. Sometimes it does take a while, but we're churning through these. So in the first stage here, what we did was apply changes down to my dev instance and publish a version of the application. And the second stage here, what we are doing is deploying the application onto my test instance and then running an ATF test suite that I got set up. Now, one of your questions might be, where is your scheduled client test runner? And the reason that I don't have another browser window open up right now is because for the sake of the demo, I only have one very simple server-side test step set up as a part of this particular test suite. But we did address the need for an active browser tab or window to be present to run these scheduled jobs as a part of our Rome release with ATF Headless Browser, which I will cover in the roadmap slide coming up. And terrific. Looks like both of my jobs completed. Our ATF test suites completed successfully. And if I were to hit refresh on this rather than waiting for it to pass itself, we can see here that my CI build has completed. And I can now complete or merge my pull request here. So I'm going to merge my feature branch into my master branch here. And if we recall from earlier as well, the second trigger that I've set up on my pipeline is to run my CD build every time the master branch has changes pushed to it. So here you can see that in GitHub Actions Workflows, which is GitHub's built-in native pipeline tool, I have also triggered my CD build. And this time, rather than only running the first two stages, I'm going to run all three stages, assuming my tests pass, and therefore we can deploy into production. So while we're waiting for this to run, we can also answer some more questions from the chat.
Is there a DevOps roadmap / lifecycle flow that ultimately outlines how this all ties together? Good question, Steve.
So I guess I'll look at that from two perspectives. One is, are there best practices guides to enable customers to have a starting point, and then you can customize that later on. And that's something that our outbound product management team is working on, content for that enablement and education, and best practices for how to set up DevOps. And then secondly is we try to provide templates as much as possible as a starting point for our customers to set up CI/CD pipelines for DevOps. So while that CD part of the pipeline is wrapping up, I wanted to get a sense for, now that folks have seen a demo for using source control with a global app, Git branching for as the mechanism of development, and then a CI/CD pipeline leveraging app repo and ATF in GitHub Actions. How likely are you to try this with your team? I'll give everyone a minute to answer that.
All right, there's a lot of questions coming in right now, and I just want to give a quick reminder that if we don't get your question answered live, we will be answering these after the show and get those posted out to the community in the next few days. So watch for that. Some of them may go so deep, we need to get Charn back involved and say, hey, got a couple. So we'll get that taken care of. We're not ignoring you. It's not that we don't love you. We do. We just want to make sure that we have enough time to get the questions and the slides and the demos and everything taken care of as well.
Picking up a question here. Where would the change be created as a part of the deploy, as well as do you have a working example of creating the change going into prod? So in this case, the difference between conventional development using update sets, where you make the change, package it up into an update set, then you have to track that via change requests, is now you can use Git branches as the mechanism to both isolate and track that development. So while you can certainly still create change requests, even as a part of the automated CI/CD pipelines. So for example, when you trigger a CI build, perhaps even before you publish a version of the application, you go create that change request record using one of the DevOps BU's API endpoints and that automated change management flow. I would offer that there are multiple other options now for tracking those changes, as well as validating them as a part of your development and app lifecycle development journey today. Cool. All right. I think we've gotten about as many responses as we're going to get. So let's take a look here. So 10% of you said, we'll try immediately. That's great. 80% of you, the bulk of you, said you're interested, but no plans to try immediately. One of the things I would love to dig more into to understand is, how do we move you guys from interested to want to try? Then lastly, 10% of you are not interested and doesn't solve your needs. I'd also love to better understand for that last 10% of you, what are the needs that we can do better to solve today? Okay, Terrific. So you can see here now that all three stages of my pipeline have passed completely my CD build. So my change in this case has made it onto my master branch and been deployed as an application to production automatically after validating that the master branch version of the application is also passing. And we should be able to see here that the version of my application here should be bumped up from 0.46 to, I think in this case, it should be 0.47 based on my pipeline setup. Assuming App Manager here ever decides to finish running. It's 0.48. All right. 0.47 was my feature branch build version. 0.48 is my production master branch build version. So that completes the demo example of developing a feature, validating it, merging it, and then revalidating it, and then publishing and deploying it to the production instance. So in the last couple of minutes here, I wanted to quickly go over what we have shipped over the last couple of releases, what's coming up soon in San Diego, as well as what are some of the biggest pain points that we want to resolve going into 2022. So in Orlando, our goal here really was to enable a basic source control and CI/CD pipeline driven development model. And to that end, again, we provided both on-platform options with that CI/CD spoke, so you can construct that automation in Flow Designer, as well as off-platform capabilities via our CI/CD APIs, which the GitHub Actions that you just saw are built on top of. On top of that, we also wanted to enable connecting to Git repos hosted behind your corporate firewalls via mid-server feature. So you will see that feature if you try to link to source control from Studio, as well as a couple of features here, collision avoidance and selective commits, to enable easier collaboration when you have multiple developers working on the same app on the same branch for the same app on the same instance. In Paris, the top goal for us was to enable all of those features, but for global apps in particular, which is the bulk of the development work for our customers. So we provide a feature called metadata protection, which enables you to define claims for a set of records, global records for a global app. And based on those set of claims, we have a claims resolver engine that goes and figures out when you go install that global app onto another instance. That instance will also now know, hey, this set of global records belongs to this new global app that showed up on the instance, or this new version of the global app. On top of that, many of you have expressed pain points in the past when applying remote changes. We were uninstalling and then reinstalling the application, and I deleted all of the data associated with the application. So in Paris, we provided the delta loading feature, which performs operations only on the changes to your application, thereby retaining all the data that you have associated with your app.
Thank you. Thank you. That was years in the waiting.
Glad that was fixed. Hopefully that increases adoption of source control.
Oh, yeah.
And in Quebec, that's great. And in Quebec, we continue the journey of making sure source control and apps can cover all the use cases that update sets can cover. So again, application customizations for store apps. So apps published by our ISV partners or by some ServiceNow teams like SecOps will fall under this category. So any customizations you can do in those scopes, you can automatically take those, put them to an app customization package, and use the same app repo workflows for your development as you would for scoped and global applications. On top of that, we also provided a couple of new features. Batch install resolves pain points around having to manage many different individual pipelines for all your different apps. So we provide you the capability to define a single JSON manifest file, multiple applications and plugins, including app customizations, so you can have just one CI/CD pipeline for many applications at once. And this also solves pain points around only being able to install one app at a time on an instance. So in the previous example, if you had multiple pipelines trying to install different apps at the same time, sometimes they would conflict if they were using the same test or production instance. Again, we also shipped all of the external integrations that I just shared. And we started on a journey of making many of the source control stashing behaviors on instance a little easier. Coming soon in Rome, we've extended app customizations also to plugin applications. So any of the customizations that you've been doing for HR or Employee Service Center or CSM, you can also use app customizations for. And this completes the journey of making sure that there's parity between source control source control and app repo-driven workflows with update sets. On top of that, I mentioned earlier, we have a feature called ATF Headless Browser now. Previously, if you did not have a scheduled client test runner available, your ATF test suites, especially the UI or client tests, would just error out. And obviously, that is a huge blocker to having fully automated CI/CD pipelines if they are failing because you didn't have a person trying to keep a browser window active. So now, if you don't have a scheduled client test runner available, if you have the setup available, we will go run a Docker image that we are publishing as a Docker container that hosts Chrome and Firefox browsers headlessly, and that will open up a scheduled client test runner so that your test suites won't fail. That way, you can have fully automated CI/CD pipelines by leveraging Docker on Docker hosts that you provide as a part of your infrastructure. On top of that, many of our customers have pointed out some limitations around how you can set up mid-server today, including how you generate those SSH keys, how we handle URL redirects. So we upgraded the JKit library on instance so that we can provide more flexibility as to how we handle that. And that should make setting up mid-servers much easier to debug as well. Lastly, one of the pain points that we've heard is today when you are committing records to instances, I showed you that selective commits modal today. However, there are also changes that can happen to your records associated with an application that are not tracked in the customer updates table. So for example, if there's any automations that happen on instance and they make changes to those records previously, prior to Rome, were also being committed unknown to the end user developer here and would only show up in the Git repo. And this was obviously a pain point because the developer user then goes to the Git repo and discovers, hey, where did all these additional records that I didn't select to commit come from? So we've improved the consistency between what you choose to commit and what shows up in your Git repo via a choice of whether you can commit those untracked changes in the customer updates table on the selective commits modal. So feel free to play around with those Rome features once it hits EA and on those PDIs. Coming up in San Diego, now that we have parity with update sets in terms of what types of customizations you can cover now with applications linked to source control, we want to make it easier to take all of your customizations and put them into applications, as well as for you to work with, especially very large size applications. So we're going to be starting work to improve how you can add global records to global apps instead of having to pick one update set at a time like I just showed you and add existing files. We want to allow you to filter down to a list of update sets and just add all of those records into a global app. Secondly, we want to improve the speed and performance of installing applications. So today, when we install an application, we are performing operations on every single record in the application. And going forward, we want to only perform operations on the diffs. So any records actually have changes. And that should vastly speed up installs for applications, both published by ServiceNow as well as by customers and our ISV partners. For many of our customers who have already adopted scopes as a part of their development work, their applications are stored in the sysapp table today. And as a part of transitioning to using app repo, those apps need to live in a sysstore app. And so sometimes today, you may have to call into the support team to run a script to do that one-time change for some applications that you're doing that transition for. And we want to just make sure that you can do that in a self-serve model going forward. Additionally, we're, again, continuing to improve how stashing operates on an instance by making sure that when we squash stashes as part of apply remote changes, they're separate, and that you can directly go to a stash record so you can see what's actually in the stash before naming one. On the ATF side of things, we're planning to ship a test debugger feature for you to set up breakpoints in your test steps so that you can more easily figure out what's going wrong with your tests or just to improve your test authoring experience. On top of that, that will allow you to prevent a rollback at the end of running a test so that you can actually see what the setup on an instance is like at the end of a test run. And lastly, as a part of helping customers to more easily manage, especially the very manual post-upgrade activities for highly customized customers, we're planning to start work on a feature called upgrade plans to help you automate and optimize a lot of that post-upgrade activities, especially as applications. Very briefly covering the top pain points that we are hoping to aim for in 2022. Firstly, we're hoping to make off-platform development more practical. Today, if you are merging Git branches for your application, that can be challenging because everything is an XML record. There's a lot of really noisy fields with like counts and date timestamps, things that you don't want to bother resolving merge conflicts for. And so we want to improve the noise as well as the readability of merges in these most popular Git repo tools. Secondly is we're going to be continuing the journey of providing a better instance offering for our customers. Again, starting with clone management console and partial clones, but following up, I would like to evaluate FMO instances and figure out what's the appropriate pricing and packaging model for our customers so that you can easily adopt a lot of our features while reducing your costs. And thirdly, continuing a lot of the work that we're doing in San Diego, how do we help our customers move from update sets to packaging their development and customizations into apps more easily. Then lastly, just around ATF, I want to start investigating how we can provide a broader coverage on what ATF can cover today in terms of what components and workspaces it can test, as well as whether there's an opportunity for us to integrate with popular test frameworks like Selenium so that you can do a hybrid testing model, as well as how we can better improve just the end-to-end testing experience, be that via test authoring, can we provide something better than listen forms, as well as how do we enable you to better manage and track the performance of your tests, dashboards, reports, etc. Is there any way to better show the results of your tests, either as you're running them or after the build has completed? So these are some of the top areas that we are thinking about as we head into next year after San Diego. So just to wrap up today, what are the top 3 lessons I would take home from this? One is you can now take all your global customizations and put them into global apps and use source control and app repo as the mechanism for development. 2 is by learning how to use Git branching as the mechanism to provide code and work isolation, it enables your developers to stop stepping on each other's toes with update sets, especially for those large dev teams. And lastly, getting started with CI/CD is as easy as copy-pasting from a pipeline template and using any of the build steps that we have provided. Or if your choice is on platform, just streaming up those subflows and actions in Flow Designer to get your automation set up.
All right. Thank you very much, Charn. I know we are at the top of the hour and many of you have to drop. So real quickly, another bunch of resources that will get links into the respective community posts. So we want to remind you to check out the docs, check out the developer site, developer.servicenow.com. That's where you can go and get a personal developer instance and try out a lot of this stuff for free. devlink.sn/technow. That's our repository of everything we've got here. So that takes care of it. If we didn't get your questions, remember those will be posted to the community. I know there were several that didn't get answered. We'll be mulling those over and doing our best to answer them in the next 48 hours. So we should have that up easily before the end of the week. We've run out of time. I want to thank our guests one more time. Charn, Lynn, thank you, Craig, for answering the questions and keeping things sane on the back end. And we appreciate everybody who has attended today and watching this online later. We'll see you next time in July. Mark your calendars, July 27th, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. We are going to be covering all of those wonderful platform Roam features. So we'll have an email coming your way, but mark that. July 27th is the TechNow for Roam early access. Be there. I want to see you. It's one of our more popular ones. Working hard to bring you that content. Till next time, take care, everybody.